You got to get your Grinch cup. That's what you need.
That's true. I need that. But it's Christmas time.
We need to bring that back. You're right. We got to
It's
bring
Christmas.
that video back.
It's Christmas.
Either,
It's not even Thanksgiving. I just pass all that.
whoa.
Thanksgiving's just a meal now to me. I mean, I thank God for all the stuff, the Pilgrims and the Indians and all that, but I do. Christmas is my jam, man.
I love Christmas, but I'm so tired of people selling Thanksgiving short. Y'all enjoy it and you don't even give it credit. You take it for granted, use it, abuse it.
I will say, turkey doesn't even last that very long anymore. Christmas always lasts. All this and more on Self-Evident Podcast. We're kidding, by the way. We're talking about marriage today.
Totally unrelated topic. But maybe you had argument in your house. Here's how you're going to solve it. She's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Problem
You know
solved.
what's weird is whenever I do these podcasts, I keep looking at the screen and my camera's like right.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's so tough because like I've got you, I have my monitor on my laptop, but I'm trying to look at the camera.
I know.
So I can't see you. So then I look down and then it's like, well, what's he looking at? Well, I'm actually looking at Massey. So then I'll look back up at the camera. So it looks like I'm talking.
But
it's all an illusion, guys.
I'm not in the big screen up there where you have.
I didn't turn it on.
Oh,
So.
Guys, welcome to Self-Evident Podcast. You got Massey, you got Mike.
Yo.
And I shouldn't be the one leading this. He should.
Whatever.
He's
actually.
Just
I think you should be the one to lead this because it was your event this weekend that sparked this idea.
Yeah, the revolution.
Yes, we all need a revolution.
Yeah, I'll give you credence on that, but I appreciate that, guys. Go to theselfevidenttruth.com. You guys can find out more information. We say this every podcast, but you should know by now. If you've not become a sponsor, if you've not become a partner in what we're doing, please do that. I mean, we're doing so much out there now, and we're getting ready for next year. I think this either next Monday or something like that, because we got to have a board meeting about all this stuff too, but just some places I want to go and see the ministry grow in and where we're going with it and the messaging that we're doing. You'll know more this Friday where we're going as a ministry for next year. This Friday's podcast is going to be pretty revealing for what we're doing. I think Mike and I have been on the same consistent page. We haven't really wavered. I will say I think him and I are starting to see the effect of prayer and starting to see the effect of we're not giving a total obedience to one side or the other. We're sitting back going, okay, Lord, how are you going to use how are you going to use these people in your game? Like what you're doing, Lord, how are you going to use them all? And so far, this has not been a disappointing season at all. I'm not talking about the win for Trump. I'm talking about the political and the spiritual things that have been happening are bigger than Trump. I think this is bigger than what we're seeing. And so it's kind of an exciting time. I think this is something we've all been kind of talking about. We're born for such a time as this. However, I'll warn you, you can't bend the rubber band back like this, let it go without a cause and effect. And so be careful. And we're going to be talking about that this Friday. But today we're going to be talking about some marriage stuff. It was mine and Carrie's 18th wedding anniversary. I look back because she's over there not wanting to be on camera. She may chime in over here if I lie or fib my fish.
You'll hear a voice yelling from across the room.
Yeah.
That's not true.
And she's ready. She's actually sipping on her coffee, smiling at me right now. Like, yeah, you're going to do it.
She's geared up and ready to go. She's listening.
You're going to do it, babe. You really are. She should have joined us for this podcast. But I think, like any good wife who is genuinely awesome, they need their wake-up juice in the morning. And so she just wanted to partake in those kind of fruits of nectar and left me and Mike on this podcast. Now, we're pre-recording this, so just so you know, the comments you make, we'll try to get back to them. But we're talking about marriage, Mike, and I know you kind of had the idea, so I'm kind of following your brainchild here.
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning, and Massey and Carrie are celebrating their 18 years, and I think a lot of times we look at marriage and we look at longer marriages, and there's certainly a sense of respect and honor that goes into that. You know, if
Yep.
somebody says like, "Oh, we've been married 50 years," like everybody starts clapping. And there are common threads that are typically found in a marriage that lasts the distance. And I thought it would be good for us to just kind of, I've been married 10 years, you've been married 18.
Yeah.
It's kind of like us just sharing, hey, what we think helps make a marriage work. Now, I will say the older I've gotten and the longer I've been married, the less I consider it like, oh, well, we communicate really well and we trust each other. And it's more like, no, I picked a really good woman.
I think that's it too.
That's a big part of it.
And I don't think there's like formulas. I think it's submission. I think it's if man can submit to God and wives can submit to their husbands, you're not going to be a jerk to your wife because you're going to love and honor her, lift her up, respect her, empower her, all those things that Christ does with the church. She will in turn honor that because she trusts where you're going. She trusts where you've been and the time you spent with the Lord. And she'll know, spiritually speaking, when you haven't been with the Lord, when you haven't been spending time, when you have, and there's where the disconnect comes in, you know what I mean? Where she's not trying to be a jerk. And I'm learning this just as much as you are. It's like, yes, communication is important. Of course, but that's just one aspect of so many things. And you're seeing marriages now, 30 years getting divorces. You're seeing, and I'm not painting a doom and gloom picture. It's just our society has created the narrative that if you're not happy, then leave to go find your happiness. When that's not what marriage entails and promises. And that's not the oath that you made. And I think we've lost the art of, my wife was telling me about this the other night. We've lost the art of sacrificing ourselves for each other. In other words, are you willing to put in the time? And she actually asked this question to me. She goes, do you think people in marriage actually like each other? Like, it's kind of like the basic thing. You know what I mean? Like, and so she's grown to like everything as much as she can about me. And there's things about me she doesn't. And I'll tell you, there's things that I do that annoy her. And there's nothing she does that annoys me. She is perfect in every way. She's never violated anything that I've ever told her to do. And she's amazing. And I honor that. But no, I'm kidding. There's definite things that on each other we can point and poke fingers at. But one of the things we've decided, I think, uncommunicatably is what we've decided to do is that's not the end goal of our marriage. The end goal of our marriage is to honor the Lord, right? But that our kids have a stable home. You know what I mean? That stability is so important. We may disagree, but on things, and sure, we get into arguments and stuff, but it's not like where the kids feel unstable in the marriage. Like the D word doesn't come up. You know what I mean? None of that stuff. Because I'm in a covenant relationship with my wife, just like I'm in a covenant relationship with the Lord. She's in a covenant relationship with me, just like she's in a covenant relationship with the Lord. If we're both focused on the Lord, right, then our covenants mean something. Our word means something. And I think that's a lost thing nowadays. That does our covenant mean anything anymore? Just because you may feel unhappy, you may feel some type of way, your husband may be off or your wife may be off, but you made a covenant before God, a pact with the Lord and before witnesses that this was your wife or husband in sickness and in health, rich or for poor, till death do you part, in good or bad situations, you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life. And I think we forget that we're going to answer to God ultimately for our marriages, right? Like how we handled it and what we did as men, especially.
I think, so there were two things that you said that I think are really important. When I was teaching, I remember having this conversation several times, and I don't mean offense to non-believers who are listening to this, and that's not my intention of what I'm about to say, but it was always hard for me to grasp how marriages of non-believers could last the distance, because you're putting expectation on the other person to fulfill you, right? To really fulfill your happiness. Whereas two spirit-filled believers, they're relying on the Lord, right? So in my own marriage, I have more of a peace about my relationship with my wife because I trust that she's trying to hear the Lord and she trusts that I'm trying to hear the Lord. So if we start to go a different direction, I still have that trust that I know the Lord will steer this ship back on course. And I trust that she's trying to hear him. She's
That's good.
trying to submit to him, just as she trusts that I'm trying to. So the triangle gets built of where Christ is the head. We're both looking to Christ,
Yeah.
and because of that, us looking to each other strengthens because there's that third element. And so I feel like if it's done properly, there's a lower percentage chance of the non-believer secular marriage lasting, because at some point, if that person just doesn't make your fancy, there's not like you said, a whole lot of covenant built into that. I
Yeah.
think the other thing, Melissa and I, like right away during engagement, we determined between ourselves, we will never bring up the D word, not even in joking. And if you guys know me, and obviously Massey knows this, like, nothing's off limits for me to joke about. Like I'll joke about just about anything. And a lot of times there are people going, you probably shouldn't joke about that. But why
No, but
not?
dude, your humor, you can bring, like, you don't have dark humor, you have edgy humor. And dude, it's like, ooh, that's flirting, but it was funny.
But
You know
it
what I
was
mean?
funny, huh?
It's not like dark humor where it's like that's gross and disgusting. It's actually
Right.
just edgy humor that's like, ooh, that's good. I wish I'd have thought of that one, but I'm not that witty and I'm not that evil.
Well,
So
I appreciate the compliment, but I will say, like, I've sworn to myself I'm never going to even joke about divorce with my wife. That's just not. It's not part of our household. It's not part of our lexicon. It's never a thought. It's never a joke. Like, we're in covenant. We're in this in the long run. So just like you were saying, it's like, I think you have to draw that line early on of like,
yeah,
we are in this together no matter what. We have made covenant. And how much more important it is to say we've made covenant before the Lord, and the Lord's part of this covenant. Because the studies show, like, if you get couples that are in real trouble, if they stick it out, typically within 5 years, they're much happier than they were at that point.
right,
And they've settled in.
right,
And that longevity comes into play if, like, hey, we're on a razor wire, we're about done here, but we're gonna lean into this and we're gonna try and figure this out. We're gonna try and work through this together. 5 years later, there's a lot more contentment, satisfaction, happiness through the long term. And I think stuff like trust, communication, all of that are aspects of this whole covenant concept. Because if you and I are in covenant together and we're both like, we're in this for the long haul, so we might as well make the best of it, I think we're more willing to, okay, well, I might as well be honest through this whole thing. I might as well, communicate well and
that's it.
work on this,
That's
before.
it. You said it. I think when couples can get right away that they're in covenant, it's easier for the man to lead, because it's like, okay, I may mess up, but I know she's with me for the rest of my life. When you have all these prenups, you have all these stipulations, we're going to be separate in these kind of things. We're only going to do these. You do this for the kids. I do this for the kids. All that separation, man, that stuff gets violated once, it's over. And when you when you don't have the trust of a person who's next to you, and I'll talk about Ephesians here in a minute, but there's a lot to covenant, right? There's a lot to your word, and you just said it. When you made a word within yourself, you know a man that can keep to a covenant, who can keep to the covenant in the little things. And I'm going to boast about Isaiah for a minute. He's never really fasted before, but this is like a good trek for his future, right? This is good for his future. He said, Dad, I'm going to fast. I got to fast. I was like, have you ever fasted before? He said, no, not really. I said, do you know what it is? He goes, of course I do. He's like, I just felt like the Lord told me to fast. And so he's 16. I mean, does he really, is he communicating? My mind is like, is he communicating with the Lord? Does he really know what he's doing? So he fasted all day, and this is the first time for him. So he's like, okay, I'm going to go all day. And I said, how long are you going to go for? He said, until the Lord tells me. So that was Saturday. Saturday night, my buddy Max and I, one of our board members, we go out to eat all the time. It's a place called the City Diner. So we'll just go out, just talk and communicate. He took Isaiah and Nathan with us too. So they were both with us. And everybody's got these, like, I order this protein plate where it's just eggs and, just meats, so I'm not carbing up. And everyone else had a bunch of food. And then Isaiah, I saw him and I said, "What are you going to do, dude?" He goes, I'm not going to eat." And Max looked at me and goes, "Seriously?" He goes, "Yeah, Dad, I'm fasting, Max." He's like, I just got to fast. The Lord's telling me to fast. He goes, "Good for you, dude. How long are you going for?" He said, "I don't know." But he sat there the whole time talking to us and just kind of held his word. And that was the first time I said, if this kid keeps up what he's doing, the Lord will honor every single covenant he makes, because even that little act for a 16-year-old is very hard to do, right? With the pressures of peer pressure and whatnot. And so, like, he got up, and I think it was like noon the next day. He said, I got my answer this morning at about 9, Dad. So I think I'll eat lunch. And it was cool just to watch his process. And I think even those little things, if you can keep your word in those kind of things, it's easier to keep your word in the bigger things. The bigger things require more of a commitment. They require more, accountability. A marriage, if you look at, God wrote specific chapters on marriage and what the role of husbands are, right? And I want to speak to single people. I don't care what age you are. I don't care, if you're up in the 40s, 50s, whatever, and you're looking for a husband or a wife or whatever like that. I don't think there's a magic potion to getting a wife or a husband. I don't think there's this, like, weird prayer you can pray. I don't think there's like, you can over sanctify yourself. Shoot, you could wash yourself pure. It's finding someone who, for Carrie and I, we just knew, I believe it was the Lord. Can you say that, babe? It was the Lord.
Yep.
That brought
Only the Lord could have done this. Lord, why?
But there was no, like, when I saw Carrie, I saw beauty, grace, the whole thing. My fireworks are off in my head, the whole nine. But I also saw some things that I'm like, oh my gosh, she's been independent her whole life. You know what I mean? She's never needed a man for anything. I thought that might be a problem at first, you know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, is she willing to follow my lead? Is she willing to, all that stuff? And I think she had a hard time maybe trusting me in some areas, right? Because I wasn't very good with finances. I wasn't very good with, like, standing up for myself. I wasn't very strong in some of those areas that she maybe thought I was lacking in too. And the funny thing was, you go through all these experiences in your life, and you realize, you just said it, when people are unhappy, the longer they go through something, it's like the Lord brings them through a storm, and the trees get stronger in the storm. So if the tree is planted in the ground, the deeper the roots go with the storm, because it's bending, you know what I mean? Like, it just strengthens the tree. Well, going through a cult or whatever we've been through, you know what I mean, really strengthened us. It grew a backbone in me. Number one, I was able to trust both of us with our finances and say, babe, you're just so much better at things when it comes to finances. She helps me a lot with decisions, and she runs the, stuff in the ministry. She's a boss babe. You know what I mean? She's awesome. She's been able to keep her independence, but she also wanted to be led too. She wanted to have someone that she could follow. And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means. I don't think I think that goes without saying. But I'm reading Ephesians 5, and I kind of want to walk through it, Mike, and I need your take on this, because I think your wife and my wife are very similar. The difference is, your wife is Little House on the Prairie, churning butter. She can plant a crop. Carrie's more, I'll hire someone to plant a crop and be smart about it. You know what I mean? So she's more on that side. She's definitely more in that peripheral of you. But I want to read through Ephesians 5 real fast. I don't want to go too deep into it, but it says, husbands, this means love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave up his life for her. But he says right before that, Christ loved the church. How did Christ love us? How did Christ love us? Because he made a distinction between loving us and dying for us, right? So there's two passages here. One is he died for us. I think that's easy. We could die for somebody. That's kind of our nature. It's what men do. We lay down our lives for one another. You know what I mean? It didn't matter if it was someone on the street. If someone's getting shot at, I hope my heart is, I'm going to go be, rescue them, kind of thing. I think that's one thing. But notice how he put love before sacrifice. Love your wives, and gave himself. The love part is really important to me. How did Christ love us? He empowered the church. He named the church. He emboldened the church. He taught the church, discipled the church, sent the church, gave to the church. all these aspects. Do we do that with our wives? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He prayed for the church. Do we do that for our wives? All these things. Does this make sense?
And I think that's when we talk about the role of a man, right? And I had a video that I put out, and somebody commented, and they backed up what I was saying, but they were talking very much about this concept of you take all these traits of what it means to be a man, and really kind of the linchpin in all of that is it for you or is it for others, right? Is it for the common good around you or for yourself? And so when you look at certain traits, and of course there's that top four, of toxic masculinity, competitiveness, aggression, dominance, stoicism. Well, all of those are tools, and all of those can easily be used
Right.
for selfishness or for selflessness.
Bingo.
And are you providing for your family? Are you providing for your loved ones, your neighbors, your community? Like, what are you pointing your action towards? And
Right.
so love is that driver of that sacrifice. It needs to be that driver, right? Why am I sacrificing? Because I love. And I think a lot of guys, I know this was true for me, when I got married, there was a part of me that died. And I'm glad of that. And I really believe that the original intent of the bachelor party was hey, your old self is dying. Farewell.
Yeah. And it turned into a selfish party now, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. It really has. It's let's get hammered. And when in reality, what it was supposed to be was this concept of, hey, you're no longer this man. That man is dying.
That's
You're
right.
becoming one flesh with your wife. And when I got married, there was a part of me that died and a new part of me was born of this isn't about me, right? And then when my first son was born, even more of me died that this isn't about me. This is about somebody else. And in marriage, when you're going to represent Christ in your marriage, it comes with that love and sacrifice. That love should lead you to sacrifice, right?
Bingo.
No greater love the man has this that he laid down his life for his friends, right?
Do you ever notice when we sacrifice before love? Like, in other words, if we just sacrifice instead of love before sacrifice, we put our sacrifice as a pin against another person. Dude, look what I did for you. Look what I've done for you. We like throw it in people's faces because it wasn't done out of love. And I even told my wife this when we start, and don't ask me for money, okay? But because I don't have a lot. But when we start like giving money away, I don't even want it back. I don't even want to expect it back because it puts an expectation on that person. And Paul said something really cool in Corinthians. He said, for we know no man after the flesh. He goes, we knew Christ in the flesh, but once he was resurrected, we know him totally by the Spirit now. And if we can get that mindset that people are made new in Christ, I don't want to view them in a negative light all the time, unless their fruit dictates that, right?
Right.
I don't want to keep viewing them as in the wrong. I want to view them as Christ sees them. And so I never want to have over someone's head that we owe or they owe us something or anything like that. Dude, I want to do because I love. You know what I mean? I want to love my wife because I love her. There's nothing in return. That's where marriages fail too, bro. Is like, look how much I do. Look how much I put in. Look at all I've done. And it's like, that should be the norm if you love him or if you love her. You know what I mean?
Immediately, if you bring in the concept, and we all have to watch ourselves because we do it very subtly, and we'll do it all the time, right? Well, I did such and such for so and so, and the immediate question we should ask ourselves is, yeah, so, and because
welcome to Christianity,
right? If you're actually professing that you love that person, and you're showing love to them, there should be no expectation, no standard, no strings attached to that situation. And if you look at how Christ tells us it's better to give than receive, and he tells us to give our cloak and that kind of thing, that action of giving is the action. When you do it in love, it is I give this expecting nothing back, and I'm totally at peace in my heart about that. And it can be dangerous for us because it's easy for us to say or tell ourselves, yeah, I don't have any expectation on that. But then 3 months down the road, if that person burns us in some way, then all of a sudden, man, I did such and such for them and I did that for them. There it is.
Right.
there's the string you've just attached without even realizing you attached strings to it. And we watch people do it where like they'll give money, and this is so true in the nonprofit realm, and this is something that disgusts me, is like whether a church or a nonprofit or whatever. Oh, well, I gave them money, so they should do this and this, or I gave them money and I expect them to do it this way, or why didn't they?
Right.
Where was your heart in the? Were you purchasing something from them? Purchasing an
That's right.
expectation, or were you giving freely?
So crazy.
Freely.
It's crazy because I'm in 2 Corinthians, and this is that whole chapter of how the Lord provides for the sower. And there's this revelation I'm getting, but I think people get two things confused. One is sowing, one is sacrificing, giving. When you're doing something to sow into it, you're expecting a return. But it benefits you to give to more to others, right? If I'm sowing into my life as far as like working out, business, growing in my word time, my faith time, my prayer time, I'm sowing into the kingdom to receive a benefit. However, my giving is not sowing. I'm giving from what I've sown into somebody else. And I think what's happening is we're confusing sowing and giving. So
That's
in other words, what I do for my wife, I do it as a give. I'm not sowing into her to do the basic things that she needs for love, that she needs for her growth. I'm not sowing into her to get something back. I'm giving to her so that she can grow because she needs to be sowed into. Do you know what I mean? She's sowing in time in the word and prayer. And everything we do outside of that is giving, right? So does that make sense?
Finish up. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just think it's a concept that I'm still trying to work out in my heart, that like there are times to sow, because he talks about a farmer doesn't sow seed expecting not a return. But what is that for? You know, at the end of it, he said, it's because when you give, you'll have abundance for others. That's giving. That's not sowing. I don't expect anything in return. You know what I mean?
That's so good, because a lot of times we attach results from our giving, when I love that you're separating those out, because it can be true in marriage, it can be true in friendship, it can be true in the ministry world. When you're sowing, you are investing.
Right.
You're investing to produce a fruit. And isn't it interesting that first fruits are an offering back to God? That should not be your first fruits are another investment. Your first fruits are a gift. I love that you differentiate
this is good.
that, dude.
See, you're helping me work that out. Yeah,
because when we talk about giving, say, to the church, I don't mind if we talk about it as an investment into the kingdom. I'd love to see fruit produced by the kingdom. I'm okay with that. This may change my, and I'm sure I'll step on toes here, but this may change my opinion a little bit on the concept of, well, give to the church and God's going to give back to you. But I want my giving to be a gift.
Right.
Giving to be a free gift to the Lord with absolutely no expectation. Because then if you don't get that paycheck in the mail that the Lord was going to bring your way, then it's all, but I gave to you, Lord. And I can look back at events in my life where I gave and didn't get back. And so then was frustrated with the Lord. And looking at it now, it's like, boy, where was my heart in that? Was I actually giving because of my love of the Lord? Or was I thinking, well, I'm investing and God's going to pay me more dividends at the end of the quarter?
I think there's a difference between investing into the kingdom of God, which is your church. I think there's a return there, because he says it in 2 Corinthians 9, and he talks about in the same way he'll provide the increase for your resources and produce a great harvest of generosity in you. So in other words, when I give to the kingdom, right? But then there's just offerings. There's this other side of it. There's just like offering. I'm just giving to people. I'm just doing it out of the kindness of my heart. I think God sees your heart of giving first before your seed, but he does bless, because that's what farmers do, is we sow seed. I think though, like when I'm doing for my wife, I don't want to expect anything in return from her, because it puts an onus on her. And if she doesn't meet my expectation of what I sowed into her, he doesn't say, he goes, what does he say? Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. Doesn't say expect anything in return. Doesn't even say anything about sowing. It's just giving to your wife because you've sown into me, you've sown into the kingdom, you've sown into yourself, your business, your whatever. When you come home every day, this is the field that you need to cultivate. This is where you're giving all your time. I realize something early on, you got to be Superman, dude. You got to go out and give at your workplace. And I'm talking strictly from a man's perspective. You come home, your kids don't give a crap what kind of day you had. They don't care about how hard it was and decisions you made. You know what I mean? They're happy to see dad. And guess what they want to do? They want to go outside and throw a football. My son right now, he's like on me about working on our pickup truck. And, he's like, I just want to go do that. I just want to do that with you, Dad. And Nathan, he always wants to go out to eat with me just because he wants to sit and talk a lot. Isaiah, he's kind of growing on, he drove to church on his own now. It's like, okay, but like you pour into them expecting a return for their lives, not for me. I will be I will be judged by how we raise them and what we put into them. They don't have to give me anything in return. I never want them to look back and go, I owe my parents everything. What we did was out of the kindness of our hearts. Now you're a man, go do your thing with your family. You know what I mean?
And I think you would diminish yourself if you were looking at it of, well, I'm investing in my kids now, so that way they grow up and they do well, so that way they can provide for me in retirement. And I think plenty of parents make that joke, like, oh, I'm setting you up so that way you can take care of me. But I would rather, in my heart for my kids is, I just want to see them succeed. I want to see them do well. I want to see them have a fruitful, contented life, a life of impact, a life of productivity.
I think though that's the power of words, Mike. Is you said you wouldn't joke about the divorce word, with your wife. You know why? Because of the power of words.
Right.
Even a joke like, I want my kids to take care of me. There's a seed planted, regardless if you believe this or not. There's a seed planted in you. You make a half-hearted joke about it, and it's like, man, it really would be cool though if I don't have any money, then my kids would take care of me. And so, like, and if you're honest with yourself, you think that people who've been divorced, it's like all those things they said in their heads, the seeds they sowed of negativity or whatever. And there are some who have gotten divorced who tried to do the right thing and couldn't get it done, and their husbands fell off or whatever. I don't know where to put the blame on that. I don't even know if there is such a thing as blame. I think it's just when we both don't hold to the covenant. Oh, and here's another one. When Carrie and I united, you kind of mentioned this at the beginning, because we kind of went down some rabbit trails, and I think the sacrifice and sowing, but I want to bring it back to this. Like, you become one flesh. Can one flesh divide itself? Like, can I cut myself in two and have a brain that says, I'm going to go do evil and go do good here, and it's going to coexist well? Do you know what I mean? Can one side of me say, like, can I tell the lower half of my body, I'm divorcing you? I'm not going to use you any more legs. I know the modern liberal today thinks that, what do they call those people that want to make themselves paralyzed? They want to.
Insane.
Yeah. It's stupid.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what the disorder is, but yeah.
But we look at that and go, that's just disorderly. That's disgusting. What are you doing? That's not the way you were designed. Why are you doing that to yourself? Why can't we look at the marriage as a one body and look at each other and go, why are you doing that to yourself? Like, if there's just division in the marriage and there's all this, why haven't you become one flesh yet with you and the Lord? Like, why is this covenant why is it separated? Because what God has joined together, let no man put asunder, even you. No man can put it asunder, not even you. You know what I mean? So this concept of one flesh, I think, is we don't look for the benefit of the marriage anymore. We look for the benefit of each other. And that's where I think the divide is really at. We don't look at if Carrie doesn't talk a lot, as far as she doesn't just like say things redundantly. She's not like me. She's not a talker. So when she does talk, I got to listen. Why is she saying the things she's saying? Why is she telling me that? Why does she want to go do that? Why did she make that decision? And I have to analyze that. Did I help her in that decision? Did I not? What am I supposed to do for her in that decision? Why? Because we're one flesh. I want to see her prosper as much as she wants to see me prosper. If she feels like the Lord has a prayer ministry for her, then that's what she's going to go do. And I got to have those doors open for her to do that. So she's empowered to do those things. Right. She empowers me equally by allowing me to go stub my toe everywhere. Like, hey, go make that decision. Go for it. And if I fail, I fail. I come back home and she's like, hey, man, at least you tried. Go out and try it again. You know what I mean? Go out and do this again. We got some really cool things that we're talking about as a future and what we want to do with our futures. And she just looked at me. She said, I think we need to take a year and just rest and relax and just do what we do before that door even opens. And what does Massey do? He's like, yeah, you're right. That's true. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden I start making phone calls and they're like, oh yeah, let's do it. It's like, did I not just agree with her that we would take a year and just wait a minute, just let the Lord process this through us? And I realized me jumping the gun is not trusting the Lord and not trusting the covenant I made. That's wrong. Already I failed. And it's like, Lord, I don't want to do that. I want to be one with my wife because we are one flesh. She trusts me and I trust her, dude. And if I stepped out too fast, she would still be home and love me. But what it does is it puts in her that thing of, will he listen this time? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want that. You want to make sure that if you agree to something, you agree to something and you stick with it as best you can. And I think that's where it is. It's like just knowing that we're in this for the long haul of marriage. We're not in this for the long haul of one over another. I mean, that's what it is. I care more about her needs than I do my own, or I care about the boys' needs before I do my own. I think that's just evident. You have to do that.
And I think, to put a bow on it, it's that selfless self-reflection, introspection.
Ooh, that's good.
That taking an accounting of your marriage and your relationship and going, okay, where am I at? And where do I need to improve in how I relate to my significant other, to my partner, to this person I've unified with? And for women, that's probably somewhere in the realm of, am I trusting him with what the Lord is putting on his heart? Even if I don't understand it, or even if it makes me nervous, or even if it's something that scares me, right? And for men, very much, are you recognizing how easily you can start to detach and plow forward with what you want to do, and she's left holding the bag in the dust, and the selfless nature says, okay, I've got this in me that wants this, or wants to go this direction, or wants to be this thing. How does this affect my partner? And where's my partner at? Where are they at in their walk with the Lord, with their stability, with their peace, and pouring into that union, that covenant, takes a focused energy. It's just like, you could be the best player on a sports team, let's say hockey or basketball or whatever, but if you never pass and you never set up the other players, you start to get a reputation for just being a greedy athlete. You're in it for yourself. You're kind of a diva. It's the players who, maybe they score a lot, but they also are setting up the other players a lot. They're recognizing when, okay, the better opportunity for us to win this game is if I pass the puck to that guy over there, because he's got an open net. And we've got to do that in our own relationships of, when is it the wise decision to put ourselves down and say, no, I'm going to trust you. And,
right.
And this is about you in this moment. And I trust that you recognize something that I'm not recognizing.
Truth.
So, yeah.
No, I love what you're saying.
On it.
No, that is your bow, and it's a good one. I think too, just to end it, because the packaging is great. I think if we can ask ourselves honestly, ladies, men, how come we're so much more willing to do for others than our own wives sometimes, and our own husbands?
It's so true.
Like, we're almost willing to sacrifice more for our friends. We're willing to stay out with them, go out with them, hang out with them, be with them, than being home, and loving our wives. And, I've even been just where it's like, I've just learned to appreciate everything I can about my wife. The little things, the big things, the changes, the fact that she spent almost 20 years with me, walking together, being together, and she still doesn't not want to. She still wants to be with me. You understand how what man could not appreciate that she still wants to be with you, right? As a man,
right.
It's not just confidence it puts in you; it puts love in you and like appreciation. There's no like form of, like, when we say lead, I know the world takes that weird and says, you just want her to submit. It's like, She's more than a submitted person, man. She's a baller. She's a baller. She does so much, and she submits to God, and I love that about her. And even her words and affirmations and hugs and all those things. It's like she has every reason in the world's context to say, I don't want to be with him anymore. In the world's context, because I'm an idiot, man. I do stupid things. I say stupid stuff. All that stuff. And she still says, no, this is my person. This is who I'm with. And that is, I think she loves it, like things about me that I personally am like, I'm trying to change. You know what I mean? And then there's things about me she loves it. I'm like, you really like that about me? That's crazy. Like my hair, she loves the salt and pepper night look. She loves it. Yeah. I've had gray hair since I was 16. I didn't realize that I would have a wife that would eventually love it, because I thought it looked terrible as a kid. I was like, I hate this. It's like a curse. Here I found a wife that actually loves it. It's the weirdest thing. And, growing up with a mom who sat in a prayer closet for hours, it just was normal, right? I ended up marrying a woman who does it. And it's like the Lord brought us through these cool things that we are together, in this. And I remember when she got cancer, and you realize where your love is, where your heart is. You realize in those moments what you wouldn't do for her. Like there's nothing I wouldn't do for her. And your heart grows stronger with her and the kids. The kids grew through it a lot too. But you just realize all the stuff you go through is for a purpose. And who would have thought, man, 18 years now, and we're helping other couples sometimes through our marriage, sometimes through our counsel, her wisdom, like what she's seen and been through, the way she's learned to love despite me not deserving it, I guess you could say. And her laying down her life for me, just like I'm laying down my life for her. You know what I mean? So there's just a lot to it. And I think it's just knowing we're one flesh and we're going to keep doing this thing together. And she's down for every adventure, I guess, that I want to go on.
She trusts you.
Never mind. She said, man, she's not down for everything. But I'm also willing to go do whatever she wants to do too. And I learned to enjoy things because it's a different perspective. Like, why does she love certain things that I necessarily have never, not that I don't love them, I just never thought about it. So when I go experience it, I'm like, I'm experiencing this for the first time. And I'm like, this is fun. This is great. We just went to a concert. And I love every kind of music. I'm a musician. I love every kind of music, bluegrass, country. But I wasn't thinking of this band particularly. As a matter of fact, when she bought the tickets, I forgot what band we were going to go to see because I didn't even think about it. So we go there and she kept telling me, thank you for coming to this. I know this isn't your kind of thing. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? I love Alabama. I just didn't know that's where we were going. And dude, it was such a fun night being around people who just wanted to have a good time. And it was a bunch of American people. I'm talking about America, bro. Like mullets, dude, the nice
the
cut
whole 9 yard.
Perm front, long wavy back, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, brother, cut off flannel shirts. It was like redneck heaven. And I was like, I felt accepted because I was like, they don't know. I mean, they may know I'm Mexican, but man, I was protected, bro. And it was so fun to be around those people. They just had a good time, and the songs they sang and the stories they told and just enjoying those moments. And I told her she probably wouldn't go to a Wage War concert with me, maybe because I love that that metal, and she might, I don't know, but enjoying everything she wants to do is best. And it grows your mind, it grows your heart, to see into her world, why she likes those things, why she does those things. Just little tidbits, man, just little nuggets of advice. You know what I mean?
Yep. So there we go. Basically, the advice is don't suck. Be a good marriage partner. That's all you need. So, all right, guys, we love y'all.
But really, don't suck.
Yeah, really, don't. Okay, but we love you guys. We hope y'all have a great day, great weekend, and week. It's Monday today, isn't it? Dang, dude.
Man, I know.
The days crunch together. So have a good week. We'll see you Friday. All right.
Bye.
Love y'all. Bye.